Hey, welcome back. Today we're going to look at the IELTS Part 2 sample answer for Describe the first paid work that you ever did. Let's have a look. The very first paid work I did was probably one night. Very first paid work. This T in first can disappear. Very first paid work. The very first paid work I did was probably one night. Probably becomes probably. Probably one night. One night. One ends with N and night begins with N, so they connect together. Probably one night. Probably one night when I helped out at a restaurant. When I. Those words connect together. When I helped out at a restaurant. Helped out at a restaurant. Watch what happens when those D's and T's are spoken quickly. Helped out at a restaurant. Helped out at a restaurant. Helped out at a. Helped out at a restaurant. Restaurant is written restaurant, but that syllable in the middle disappears. Restaurant. Helped out at a restaurant that my aunt owned. The word that just turns into that. Helped out at a restaurant that my aunt owned. This word aunt, a lot of people pronounce it aunt, and a lot of people pronounce it aunt. Personally, I've always pronounced it aunt, but both pronunciations are acceptable. That my aunt owned. I must have been about 15 at the time. I must have been. So if I speak very quickly, must have been turns into must have been. I must have been. Must have been. If I speak a little bit quickly, then it becomes must have been. Not must have been, but must have been. But when it's very fast, it turns into musta. Must have been about 15 at the time. About 15. That T in about turns into a glottal stop. At the time. At becomes reduced, and at the connect together into one sound. At the. 15 at the time. The restaurant had a bar. The restaurant had a bar. So again, we reduce restaurant to restaurant, and the final T disappears before H. Then D in had a connects to the next syllable. Had a bar. The restaurant had a bar. And that night, the D in and connects to TH, and the T in that becomes a glottal stop. And that night. And that night, some rich guy had a birthday party with a ton of people. Had a birthday party. We would connect had a together into what sounds like one word. Had a birthday party there with a ton of people. The same thing with a ton of people. With a ton of people. Of here can also change depending on how fast I say it. Ton of people. Ton of people. Ton of people. And so my aunt asked if I would help out. And so that D in and disappears. And so my aunt asked if I would help out. Now that D in would help stays present, but it's kind of tapped. If I would help out, would help, would help. It's a very, very light tap with my tongue on the roof of my mouth. Would help out. I didn't do much. I didn't do. I don't pronounce that T in didn't. Didn't do. There's kind of a glottal stop after the N. Didn't do. I didn't do much. Just brought up extra chairs. Just brought up. The T in just disappears. It doesn't turn into anything. It just goes out of the word entirely. Just brought up. Just brought up. Now that T in brought turns into a tap. Just brought up. Brought up. Just brought up extra chairs from the basement and took out the garbage. Basement. Basement. There's a glottal stop instead of a T. Basement. and took out the garbage. Now, and took, we make that D a little longer. And took, and took, and took out the garbage. Out the connects together. Out the garbage. Out the garbage. Some people might say this as a glottal stop first. Out the, out the. So a glottal stop before the TH sound. Other people would link it directly together. Out the garbage. Out the garbage. Personally, I do the glottal stop first. So I do a full glottal stop, then the TH. Out the garbage. Took out the garbage. Little things like that. Little, the T in little, always turns into a tap. Little things. Little things like that. If I speak quickly, then the K in like turns into a glottal stop before TH. Like that. Like that. I actually wasn't expecting to get paid. Wasn't expecting. The T disappears in wasn't expecting. Expecting to get paid. T. To gets reduced here to just T. Expecting to get paid. So it was a nice surprise. So wit. So wit. Those vowels connect together. So wit. We add a wa in between those sounds. So it was a nice surprise. That T in it becomes a glottal stop. So it was a, and then we connect was a together. So it was a nice surprise. And we connect nice and surprise together because of the S sound that those words share. So it was a nice surprise when she handed me some cash at the end of the night. At the end. So we connect the at the into at the end. At the end of the night. And of, again, can turn into end of the, or it could turn into end of the night. For me, it's more comfortable to turn it into end of the night. The very first paid work I did was probably one night when I helped out at a restaurant that my aunt owned. I must have been about 15 at the time. The restaurant had a bar, and that night some rich guy had a birthday party there with a ton of people, and so my aunt asked if I would help out. I didn't do much, just brought up extra chairs from the basement and took out the garbage, little things like that. I actually wasn't expecting to get paid, so it was a nice surprise when she handed me some cash at the end of the night.